and welcome to the second episode of Iron Talons Engineering. Now, if you're on the second episode, you obviously watched my first one and thought, nah, maybe I'll give this one a go. Maybe I'll have a little go and see what it's all about. So yeah, cheers for that. Anyway, today we will be removing most of the front end, ready to get the engine and gearbox out. So we're going to start with bonnet, wings, nose cone, lights, crash bar, maybe intercooler, and start getting things and bits and pieces out, ready to get the engine out. So yeah, let's crack on with that. Right, bonnet off consists of 2 gas strut bolts with spacers which are already on them, tube spacers which go in here, 2 bolts per hinge. And they're different. 2 of them are looking like self-tappers with a taper on the bottom, and the other ones are just plain bolts. Now, I've never removed this bonnet before, so it was very, very tight. That's why I didn't film it. I also had to get my partner in here to help me lift it out just because it's an awkward bastard. Right, so now we're going to move on to the wings or the nose cone or something like that. Maybe the headlight covers. So yeah, light covers now off. I'm sick of the clicking now. Anyway, the front nose cone is off. I've never taken that off in my 11 years of ownership now. So that put up a fight. So what we've got, for anyone who's willing to take their nose cone off as well, just be aware that you will snap some bolts. You've got 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. Right, you can access them from inside the light. You've got to let the light come up and then you get them. The same on the other side, but the ones that are a pain in the ass are you've got 2 right in here against this bit of the wing. Now what they are is they're like captive studs. So they come out of the nose cone, straight through there, and then they've got a nut on them. Now they've got a really long stud coming out, so you have to use a deep socket. They are a nightmare to get to. They're an arsehole. So just be aware that you probably will strip them, round them, or anything like that, because it's hard to get to. It's just sod's law. So yeah, nose cone now off. Now we're going to do the wings. So, the wings are now off, both of them. Now, to get the wings off, you have to take 5 bolts out of the top here, 1 bolt out of the top here, 2 bolts down here. I can't remember if there was any at the front. I didn't have any, but I don't know whether or not mine are sheared off or what, but I didn't have any. But the one that will always catch you out is Toyota have put a brace inside this wing. All it is, it's just a piece of steel with 2 studs on it, and it connects to the inner wing inside here to your wing. And every time you try and yank this off, it's always attached, always. And you always got to get your hand in there and undo it, and it's always rusty and crusty and it don't want to come off. But anyway, look out for that absolute cabbage, because that will trip you up. Anyway, both of the wings are now done. So, front panel wise is looking pretty bare. So the idea now will be to remove crash bar, oil cooler, steering cooler, intercooler, lights, all of that bit. So the crane can then get like a foot further in. And then we can start disconnecting stuff from the engine. Alright, as you can tell by the state of the floor, I've been a bit busy. The crash bar's off, the intercooler's out, the oil cooler brackets and all that are now off, and I've also got the light buckets off. Now, I'll show you this. The crash bar wasn't too bad. It's just obviously 2 bolts there, and I think if you're still rocking standard, you've got like bits and pieces still here, and it will just come out. But the light buckets, I wanted to get the whole light assembly out in one, so that I can take it apart when it's ready and paint it and all that kind of stuff. So really you've got 2 captive studs here, which just go through, and both one of them sheared on each one of them, but just because they've never been touched before. So you've got those 2 there, and then you've got I think you've got 2 there, and then you've got another 2 here, and then 1 here. And it looks like this. That's your entire light bucket. Alright, so that's all the brackets, the motor, everything. So all of that comes off. So, what we're now doing, draining the radiator, we'll take all the hoses off of the radiator and get that out. We'll get the oil cooler off and the lines off, and then essentially we can start taking bits off, also connecting to the engine up here, and then we'll have to just jack it up and get all the stuff off underneath it. So we'll see where we go with that. Right, stupidly I didn't film it, but the radiator is out, the power steering stuff's out, all the reservoir, the lines, all that kind of stuff. I've unplugged everything from the fuse box, and I've also unplugged the ECU and pulled the loom out. Now, I didn't record that, mainly because, well, it was dark in a cramped little hole, trying to see as you're pulling this out. But also as well, because this wasn't a 1JZ to start with, this was a 7M, it's been rewired by MB Automotive. Now, he's obviously rewired it, all that kind of stuff, but I don't know nothing about wiring, so when I was pulling it out I just had to be very, very careful not to pull any wires out or anything like that, so it would have been interesting for you lot to see that anyway. But other things I've got to do is just remove a couple of the lines on the top of the engine, remove the viscous fan from the front, and the power steering line from here, and that should be everything from up top. Then I'll move on to taking the shifter out, undoing the prop shaft, undoing the gearbox mount, taking the exhaust off, draining the oil from the engine and the gearbox, and we should be ready to come out. As you can see, we got the 1JAYY out. So, she came out alright. To be fair, there was only a couple of little bits and pieces that I seem to have forgotten about. One of the main ones was the actual earth strap near the fuse box. I got the engine all the way out here, up there, as you can probably saw in the video, and was like, why is it not coming out any further? What the hell's going on? Yeah, big strap right there, all tense. Right, great, yeah, undo that, and then the engine basically swung out. But yeah, she's a heavy block, so I'd assume that if you're doing this on your own, just be very, very careful, because it can just swing either way. I got a feeling when I was tilting the engine and the gearbox one way so that I could get it down, I just had this premonition that the engine was just going to fall over, the crane was just going to go over, but luckily it didn't. So, that's basically all I've got for this episode. So, on the next episode, we will be separating the R154 from the engine itself. The R154's got to go away to a transmission rebuilder because it's got a whine, I think, on the input shaft bearing. So every time it's in neutral with your foot off the clutch, you can hear this whine. But the second you put it into gear or put your foot on the clutch, it goes away. I don't think that's the thrust bearing, but I'll check it all when I pull it all apart anyway. But to be fair, she could do with a tartan up anyway. She's like nearly 35, 40 years old now, so she might as well get a bit of a refresh with new bearings and that anyway. The 1J will be going on a stand. It will be stripped down. I'm still debating whether or not to rebuild the whole thing like I did with the Sora's 7M. Because she is old and she has been used on drift days and I don't know her history. So I would quite like to put new rings in her, ARP everything, just for standard power again, but just obviously rebuild it so I know it's near enough a brand new engine on the inside. And obviously do like a metal head gasket and stuff like that as well. Send the block out for decking and the head out for skimming and tart the valves up. But we'll see. Because we did really want to try and get her done for summer next year. So I don't know. We'll see how we go. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, I'm now left with a big mess to clear up. No matter how much you drain the oil and stuff, you always seem to be left with a puddle of something when you take an engine out. So yeah, that's all for this episode of Iron Talents Engineering. So hit like and subscribe if you liked it, and if you didn't, well, just lie please, because that'd be great for my ratings. So yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.